So now my Jewish agency connection fell apart. The embassy falls apart. Then I get a phone call from my guy at work. And he says, "Hey, why? What's her name?" And I was like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "Come on, man. We know. Nobody leaves goes to a foreign country for long. There's no girl involved." I was like, "What are you talking about? There's these two children." He's like, come on. I'm like, he's like, "You know what? Forget it. But listen to me. I'm your friend. And I'm telling you, if you're not back here soon, you're not going to have any job to come back to. You're not either going to have any family to come back to." And I know what I'm talking about. So now I realize that my job is falling apart. Answering my messages. Only my daughters were answering me, and everything was falling apart. And all I did is just look at the kids. And at that moment, I made a decision. I said, no matter what happens, the consequences of this, and there's going to be some really severe consequences. I'm not, as long as it's in my hand, I'm not letting go of these children. And then Pastor Dennis comes and he meets us outside the embassy and he says, "Listen, I got to." Remember what you do when you're in trouble? You need a guy. Where's your guy? Dennis tells me that he's in the South Sudanese embassy. And I said, "Wait, South Sudanese embassy? That sounds really scary. Like, we're not in enough trouble. We have to get into more trouble." He says, "No, that's the best because it shows that you're not running away. You're going back to them." So we go to the South Sudanese embassy. Before I go, I text David Avery. He's the one who made the connection. And I said, "Are you sure this guy won't sell me out?" And he says, 100%. He's a Christian. And for all the money in the world, he'll never sell you out. And I look at Dennis. I said, "Why are you helping me? You don't know me. You signed 1 million Kenyan shillings. I disappear." And he looks at me and says, "You are a Jew helping other Jews going back to Judea. And God said, whoever helps Jews going to Judea, God will bless them." For me, that was enough. We show up at the South Sudanese embassy. Very fast, we find out that his guy cannot help us, and we go to the Consul General. The Consul General understands it's also above his payroll as well. And we go into the office of the actual ambassador. And we're sitting there with the ambassador. I'm sitting on one side, the ambassador's in front of me. To the left of me on the couch is Pastor Dennis, and then they bring the two children next to the ambassador. All around us are people from the embassy. This doesn't happen every day. And the ambassador starts talking to the children in Dinka. Dinka is their tribal language. Now that's enough to understand exactly what's going on. And I keep on saying, "Listen, I'm bringing the children to their mother to help them, education." And he's speaking to them in Dinka. And he asks where their father is, where their uncles, the village, what they're doing, where they're from. And as soon as they're talking their tribal language, he understands exactly what's going on. And he looks at me in the eye and he says, "You stole my citizens. And by you being here in the embassy, under international law, you are in South Sudan. And these children are not leaving South Sudan, and you are arrested in the name of South Sudan." Remember, at that moment, all I saw was black. I saw the verse of Psalms, "As I walk through the valleys of the shadow of death." I understand I was in the valley of the shadow of death. It's over. And then I remember being upset at God. I remember screaming at God. I said to myself inside, I said, "God, these are not my children. These are your children. I have my own children at home. I left them for these children." And then I was like, "You know what, God? You don't want these children? That's your problem, not mine." And I remember saying the verses of Isaiah. "I will tell to the north, let them go. And to the south, do not hold them back. For I will bring my children from afar and my daughters from the end of the earth." I said, "God, if you don't want to take them, that's your problem." And then all of a sudden, Pastor Dennis starts speaking. He speaks in a much more political manner. And he says to the ambassador, "Your Excellency, the reason why these children could arrive to Israel." Now, as soon as he says that, I was like, oh my. You don't say Israel. Growing up in the States, certain places, you just better not mention that you're Jewish, not mention you have a connection to Israel. You don't need to give them another reason to be upset at you. But he doesn't know that, and for him it's a good thing only. And he says the reason why these children are able to go to Israel is because they have Jewish roots. And I was like, oh no, two of the words in the same sentence? And the pastor gets really angry, even angrier than he was before. And he says, why are you telling this to me? You think I don't know? You think I don't know the history? This is known. We know about the Jewish Ethiopians that were on the way to Israel, and they stopped through our country. And then he points to his desk, and on his desk, there's a Bible. And he says, this is written in the book of the Jewish people returning to their land. And then he tells me, he says, you know, us Dinka tribe, in the 60s, we were fighting the Sudanese Arabs with bows and arrows. And no country would sell us weapons except for Israel. And we remember this for them. And he calls his assistant, and he tells his assistant to take us to our hotel to make sure everything is okay over there. And this is him, at the assistant at the hotel. And then we go upstairs to the roof, and on the roof we're staying in a nice hotel. There was a pool, and the little girl actually bent down and she said she's never seen such clear water. She tried to drink the water, and then she started spitting it out, saying that it was salty. The next day, we go to immigrations. I'm going to run through the story now, just because we're short on time. Immigrations in Kenya, they also again wanted to arrest me. They said that the only way out is if we bring the father of the children to witness and say that he signs that we can take the children. Again, with Pastor Dennis, we go to the airport. We pick up the father. This is the father. And then by the way, we happened to meet somebody at the end of the table. It was Pastor Firmo. Pastor Firmo was a pastor from South Sudan that happened to be in Kenya at the time. And we're meeting with him and we're speaking with him. And I give him an envelope with a $200 donation, thanking him for all the amazing things that he does in South Sudan. And he blesses the father. We go to immigrations, the whole long story. At the end of the day, we get cleared over there. Then we go to the South Sudanese embassy. This is at the embassy again, and we get an okay. And then we go back to the Israeli embassy. And at the end of the day, the Israeli embassy, they say one thing. They say, listen, they give us like a shopping list. They say, you could bring the kids to Israel if we need to have the original birth certificates from South Sudan. They have to be stamped by the Minister of Internal Affairs himself, and they need to have passports. Everything has to match, all the details. You have to come with the father and the mother, sit in front of one of our ambassadors. They sign that you could take the children, and then we'll give them tourist visas for Israel. And while they're in Israel, we'll figure out if they really have the right of return. On one hand, it was mission impossible, but on the other hand, at least finally I got a list. I have something to do. So, as you can see here in the picture, the kids get ready. They go back to South Sudan to get their documents, and I continue to Ethiopia, to Gondar, to the mother. This is a picture of them in South Sudan. As you can see, they're with their relatives, and they're already look a little bit different already from the short amount of time. This is me with the mother on the right. That's Fiat, and that's the grandmother on the left. These are her other siblings. And of course, we drink more buna, because that's what we do there. We're eating injera. Anybody here who didn't eat injera, don't advise, not missing anything. And this is a very important part. While we're in Gondar, we see in the Jewish community, they're making matzahs. It was right before Passover. And I remember Fiat, who's now the mother of the children, asked me, what are they doing? And I explained to her, I said, when the Jewish people left Egypt, so at the beginning, Moses came and he said, let my people go. And Pharaoh said, what? Who is God? And I'm not letting these people go, no way. And for over a year, they went through the 12 plagues. And many people gave up on the way. They said, this is never going to happen. But when the time finally came, they got the green light. It was so fast, but they didn't even have time to make bread. Their bread couldn't rise, and they left so fast. And I said, Fiat, it seems like it's forever. It seems like it's not happening. You're having so many troubles along the way. But when the time comes, it'll happen so fast. In the meantime, it's Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. I'm calling Khamis every day. I'm like, what's with the documents? What's with the documents? And he's telling me, making up all the excuses in the world. And then everybody started making fun of me. They're like, come on, you really thought he was going to get the documents? Again, he played games with you. And they said, how much money do you give him? I said, I gave him $500. They started laughing at me. They're like, you know how much $500 is in South Sudan? No way he's coming out. And I remember, again, giving up. I remember sitting in Gondar, looking over on a big mountain there, looking over Gondar. And I remember being upset and, again, giving up. And I sat down on the steps. I put my head between my knees. And I remember texting my children. I said, listen, I'll be home in the weekend, but without the kids. I failed. But at least I'm coming home and I'm not in prison. And then all of a sudden I thought to myself, wait, God never gave up on me. So how could I give up on these children? And I said, I have to try one more thing, just one more. And you know what? If I do that and it didn't work, I can at least say I tried. But what could I try? And then I remember that pastor we had breakfast with, and I gave him $200, and he's a South Sudanese pastor. I said, I'll call him. What's the, probably answer. Usually the reception there is very bad, but at least I could say I tried, So I said, I'll try, I ring, give it 1-2 rings. He didn't answer. What could I do? Right away, he answered. Remember the children that you met? I said, over is coming up. And we're bringing the Jewish people out of Egypt. And you know what? We already split the sea. Israel is willing to take them. We're missing one thing. We're missing Moses. And you have to be that Moses. And I explained to him the situation, and the firm was like, you know what? I actually know a guy in external affairs. And I said, listen, first go just meet the father to see what his story is, because he's playing games. About an hour later, he sends me this picture that he met Khamis. And the truth is the Khamis was actually trying to get the papers. It's just not so easy to get them, especially over there. So he takes all the documents, he goes, he meets this guy, and then all of a sudden he sends me a picture of the birth certificate signed by the actual minister himself. Passports, everything. And then he was on the way to the airport. This is Thursday morning with all the documents. And then he texted me saying, wait, when they land in Ethiopia, they're going to need $150 for visas. And if they don't have the money, they're going to send them back. They're going to not let them in. And I said, listen, well, I can't wire money to you from now to now. It's too late. So then he tells me, he's like, remember the $200 you gave me? I'm giving them now. That'll be the visas. And as he texts me and lets me know that they're on the plane already and they're on the way to Israel, I text him back and I say, is there anything I could do? You helped me so much. And he says, thank you so much. Before anything, I just want you to bless me in the name of the God of your forefathers, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. That's all he wanted. So I was in Gondar. I take the mother and the brother with us. That's the brother that I met in the synagogue. We get on a plane from Gondar, 50 minutes to Addis Ababa. We land in Addis Ababa, and we go to meet the father and the kids. We go right from the airport, right to the Israeli embassy. I bring the papers. I bring everything. The father, the mother. I said, Yalla, this is Thursday afternoon. Thursday was late afternoon. I want to get home before Shabbat. Here's your list. I did everything you told me. The ambassador's like, wow. I was like, what do you mean, well, you can't change the rules in the middle? He says, listen, there's a little slight problem. Because you're in Ethiopia, you need to have the birth certificates stamped by the Ethiopian authorities. I said, I tried to, get him to change his mind. Wasn't happening. I said, okay, where is it? I'll get there right now. He said, they're closed now. Be there first thing tomorrow morning. 8 o'clock in the morning, I sent him this picture. I said, these are people outside, and nobody gets it unless you're on the list. He writes back to me, he says, listen, I told you, it'll take some time. You have to be patient. Somehow, I'm with my guy, Mengisto. Mengisto takes me through the back door. We have to do a couple things. We get inside. We go up to the 3rd floor, and I sent him this picture. Packed like sardines, and there's no numbers, no anything. You just kind of wait. Now, you see that guy? You see the guy in the white suit? He's the guy. So I come to him. I say, listen, I'm from the Israeli embassy, and I need to get the papers stamped for these children. We have a flight tonight to catch. He says, oh, are you, if you're from the embassy, where's your delegate card? I said, oh, so I'm actually a volunteer for the organization working for the embassy. He said, you're a volunteer, you have to wait like everybody else. Mengisto goes up to him and starts talking to him on Amharic. He gets so upset, he takes Mengisto and he throws him down the stairs physically. He gets really angry. I'm like, okay, this is not going to work. Somehow I come up to him, I speak to him, he brings me into the room. And he says, okay, take care of this guy. And I say, I just need the stamps. He looks at it, he's like, I can't stamp on these documents. I need the South Sudanese ambassador to stamp on them first. I said, what do you mean the South Sudanese ambassador? We have the minister himself. Why the ambassador? He says, this is how we work. I see there's nobody to speak to. I go down, I get in the cab, cross the city, 45 minutes, get to the South Sudanese embassy. I say, hi, is the ambassador here? No, he's not here. I need to get these papers stamped. Is anybody else there? Nope. So I'm waiting and waiting. I'm like, are they supposed to come? And she says, maybe. Do they usually show up? Sometimes. Basically, there's nobody to speak to. I have to work some magic. We go upstairs. We get somebody else to stamp on the papers. I get back in the cab, cross the town. I come back to them. I say, look, I got the stamped. He looks at it and he says, that is the square stamp. You need the circle stamp. I was like, are you joking? I'm like, okay, how much do you want? He's like, no, you don't understand. This is, we cannot do this without getting the circle stamp. You didn't tell that to me. You told me the square stamp. Get back in a cab, cross the town. In the meantime, I call up my friend, the Israeli ambassador to South Sudan. He contacts the South Sudanese ambassador to Ethiopia. He comes in special for me. He's about to sign on the papers, and then his advisor comes and takes away the stamp, and he says, you can't do that. To OK papers is a square stamp. A circle stamp is for personal letters. This isn't a personal letter, and they start fighting between them. And then I said, listen, we have to bring these children to Israel to help these children. Please just do what it has to be done. And the advisor says, we are our own country. We will not bow down to the Ethiopians' requests. We will not give the circle stamp for the papers. And then I said, listen, these are Jewish children going to the promised land. And we have to help these children. The ambassador takes the stamp from his advisor's hand and stamps the papers. As you can see, he does also. Now we have the square stamp and the circle stamp. The top square and circle is from the actual minister himself. So now we got all the stamps. And I say, wait, before I go, I want one more thing. I want a picture with you. And this is a picture with me and the ambassador. In the back, the guy with the cowboy hat is the president. So you kind of imagine how the country runs. I cross town. I get to the immigrations. It's empty. They're on lunch break. Now the problem is it's Friday. It's already 1:30. The Israeli embassy closes at 1. And he says we can't hold it open. Just the cost of all the guards and everybody. And I said, listen, you have to do it. The ambassador calls the guy Isaac from the immigrations, takes him out of the middle of his lunch break. He comes in, he looks at the papers, and he says, oh, we can't stamp on these. You have to first go to the bank and pay the payment at the bank. I said, listen, banks are closed for today. They're only going to reopen Monday. Please, do this special for us. He says, I can't. I'm sorry. I called the ambassador. The ambassador, I put on the phone. He speaks to the ambassador, and the ambassador has this Israeli, starts talking to him. Hey, what are you doing tonight? We should go have some dinner. And then he's like, by the way, listen, just do me a favor. Don't worry. This is a very important matter. Help me out here. He hangs up the phone. He looks at me. He's like, what is this country doing for these two kids? I don't understand. He opens his wooden drawer, takes out his stamps on the paper. Now we have also the Ethiopian circle stamp. Get in the cab, I go to the Israeli embassy. They're all waiting there, and they give us the wax Israeli stamp and the passport with the visa. By the time this is done, we check, basically, the only time we could get their mother an okay to fly is Sunday, because she can't fly Friday night because she's coming in as Aliyah, and she makes Aliyah at the airport. There's nobody there to accept her, only by Sunday. So we keep them very busy till then. Saturday night, before the flight, I look at their papers, and I look at her papers, and my heart falls down. And I understand that we're in even more trouble now. Why? Because the names don't match. For whatever reason, her family was embarrassed that she's South Sudanese, and they gave her Ethiopian names, Ethiopian parents' names, she place of birth, Ethiopia, everything Ethiopian. Now, her name did not match anything of the kids' names. And I call up my guy in Israel, and he says, listen, whatever you do, don't show up to the airport with the mother and the kids. If you show up together, right away, it looks like somebody's trying to smuggle the children. They're going to stop you. Israel's going to stop you. Israel's going to think you're trying to smuggle the children. Don't do it. What do I do? This is money time. This is game time. What do I do? So at the end of the day, we realize that the mother, she could fly by herself. Nobody will say anything. Now, once she lands in Israel, she could change her name and she could come back as long as we keep the kids safe and busy till then, and she'll do it. So we get to the airport with the kids, and I look at the mother, and I say, remember that story of Passover? Now is your time. I say, Fiat, today, in only a couple hours, you are landing in Israel. And my friend will be at the airport waiting for you. And she looks at me, and she looks at her kids, and she says, well, what about the children? I said, Pia, we might come today. We might come tomorrow. We might come in a week. We might come in a month. But they will not leave my side, no matter what happens. And she said, I don't understand what's going on. I've trusted you till now, and I've never gotten this far, so I'm going to continue trusting you. In about 40 minutes, she calls me, and she says, Anafi Bab Ten with team, and I'm at gate 32, and I'm waiting to board the plane to Tel Aviv. Take a deep breath, and I say, ready or not, here I come. I go to the ticketing. There's all this trouble. The paper didn't work. I wonder, I don't have the paper here. The printer was not working. And finally, we get the paper. We go through security, and now we're standing in front of passport control. Now, their job at passport control is to make sure that people like me don't take the kids that don't belong to you through. I ran out of plans, and I ran out of guys. All I had was prayer. That was prayer, and all the verses and psalms were coming to my lips, reciting them from my heart as I walked through the valleys of the shadow of death. And here I go. And I walk up to passport control, and I felt like it was Rosh Hashanah. I felt like it was Rosh Hashanah, the day of judgment. And I'm standing before the Almighty Himself. And I'm about to be either written in the book of go or the book of don't go. And I didn't have a plan. I didn't know what to say. And I kind of just stood there and hoping that I would just walk through. I was kind of having like a fake smile, like, everything's normal and regular. And he looks at me, and he looks at the passports, and he gets up, and he stands up over the booth, and he's looking at the kids. And he says with these, like, daring eyes, he's like, are these your children? And I remember freezing. I didn't know what to say. Can't lie. But if I tell them they're not my kids, it's game over. All of a sudden, I felt this energy, and I held this suit with this exact pin. And I said, these are Israel's children, and they sent me here to bring them home. He sits down and he shakes his head like this and he says, what could I do to be part of this great country that sends people around the world to bring their children home? And while he says that, I hear the stamps on the passports. And he gives me the passports. I take them. We go to the escalators. And we go upstairs. And I see Fiat sitting by the gate with her head between her knees praying. And I tap her on the shoulder. And she looks up. And she sees her kids. And she understands that we're going to be boarding the plane together. And this is right before we boarded the plane. And a couple hours later, we landed in Israel. We walked off the plane, and there's a person with a sign waiting for us saying, welcome home. And I explained to her what it says, and I said, and then that was when she first understood, and she said, she's not just going to a better place, but she came home. After 2,500 years of all her ancestors being in exile, she landed back home. And that was the message that everybody afterwards, when we came to passport control and they understood the story and they said, welcome home. And when she got her Tudat Zeut, the person there said, welcome home. And even the cab driver understood the story and said, sister, welcome home. The next day I had to go back to work to make sure I still had a job. My kids were sending me pictures. My daughter's teaching her what nail polish is. My son teaching the boy what a bike is. And this is later on in the Chagim. This is my whole family with Fiat and the kids in the middle. And I remember that day I was at work, and the full day of work, everybody left, and I was there by myself. I remember thinking about her sister, Susie, and her 3 kids. And I remember calling up Jacob and saying, Jacob, $1,000 if Susie's children cross the border. Now that's a whole other presentation. Can't say this story now, but just so you understand, we don't leave anybody behind. And a couple of months later, Operation Left Behind number 3, August 20th, 2019, Susie lands with her children, and we brought everybody back here in Israel. And on one foot, that's the story. Of course, to get all the details, you'll have to get the book. And as I said, it is a personal story, international story, and a Jewish story.
Well, I thank you so much for your great heart, for your skill, for your courage, for your perseverance, and for your prayer. And altogether, what you've done to rescue this family and these children.
Important to understand that there was many partners, many people from all over, different pastors through South Sudan, like we met, and Kenya, and also Ethiopia, later on with Susie's story. Many supporters from abroad, supporters from the States, my family, my work, and many people who supported it. Just now, we just celebrated a couple days ago, August 20th, a year to Susie landed. And what's special now is to see them here in Israel succeeding, growing, connecting, and becoming Israeli, to see them absorbing in the Israeli society. And it's an unbelievable feeling.
So thank you so much for today, and hopefully to be continued with the story, as you say, of Susie.
Yeah.
And
do that another time, because just that alone is also a whole story with many things that kind of out of a Disney movie almost, and how we're able to get her out, and she landed here in Israel. Almost didn't make it, fought malaria. We had to go to courts in South Sudan. Very complex.
So, Lihitraot
Hitraot. Goodbye, but hitraot.
for the moment, yeah.
Yeah.
Blessings.
Hitraot. We will see each other again hopefully soon.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Neil.